Always press record before you start playing. Whether you have a hybrid setup like me or a device that you can sample directly into, whenever you're looping spacey shit alone in your room, set yourself up to capture whatever you've got going on at a moment's notice. I promise you that ambient synth loop is going to sound even cooler when you ruin it with beats. Trust me, that's kind of my thing. I captured this synth loop the other night. That's the sound of my Korg Minilog XD going through the Chase Bliss Thermae into my Octatrack. Now, I've mentioned in past videos that I basically have ongoing recordings in my DAW whenever I jam, but that's not always the case. And what I do frequently is I just have my audio routed through my Octatrack. Especially if I'm playing around with the synth, I pop it into the input of an active through machine, and that way I can just sample at a moment's notice. So I can capture them at a moment's notice instead of forgetting them forever, which is what I would do otherwise. And I can turn them into things like this. So this is just pulsing to the beat with a light side chain. And I built a beat behind it. So we have this loop running, and I put a kick and a hi-hat behind it. Really simple. Floaty, ambient house-like. And of course a snare. So I was building this beat, right? And I remembered I had this fresh stash of samples that my friend Andrew from Go Outside sent me, and I was looking through the list and played this back, and I thought, hey, this is 120 BPM, the default project state on my Octatrack, where I already looped this, and I played it back and was like, hey, sorry, dog noises in the background, but I played it back and was like, hey, this is in the same key miraculously, and it just fit. So I have the resolution for this track with this sort of looping synth part from Andrew, and I have twice the resolution. So this is technically a 128-step pattern with everything but track 4 repeating after 64 steps. And then I put in this texture from the Bath Splice sample pack. And let's chat about that really quick. So you can hear that the sound is panned to the left, and there's the dark verb on the Octatrack is panned to the right. And we have two LFOs. One of them is side chaining the dry signal, and one of them is side chaining the wet signal. So they're kind of ping-ponging, but it's ping-ponging from dry to wet, left to right. Pretty cool trick that you can do on the Octatrack. Love having multiple LFOs for each track. Love being able to send the LFOs to the effects. And when you're doing that with like the delay or the reverb, you just have to make sure to set it up to be the mix instead of the send, because then the LFO will be able to affect the entirety of that mix. So here's the dry sound. That's all it is. But it's pitch shifted and, you know, time stretched a little bit to match the beat. So here are the percussive elements. But yeah, all of that came from this. And I don't even remember the patch that I was playing on the Minilog. I don't remember my Thermae settings. It's like when you're in a class and you don't want to take notes because you're in the class comprehending everything in real time. And you're like, yeah, I get it. This makes sense. But you're not going to remember it. And when you go to study for a test, you're not going to remember it. That's what sampling is for. It's like cheating with music. And by that, I mean, it's a way to capture the raw audio from your sound design sessions that you think is really cool. And you're like, oh my God, yeah, I'm going to remember that. And then you forget it even happened because the next 10 seconds of your ambient jam are totally different and unexpected and exciting in their own ways. So it's great to capture everything for that reason. I have the Octatrack underneath one of my cameras. That way, if you're looking at this camera, and that way, if you're looking at this camera, for a little behind the scenes juice for y'all. And I've set up this patch lightly based off of the Caribou song Julia Brightly. And we can get even more Julia Brightlier by throwing the ensemble on there. Yeah, that's cool. I have the spatializer on the Octatrack setup, and then I have a good amount of filter distortion there too, just to kind of, overdrive it, saturate it a little bit. It's just a couple of saw waves coming from the mini log blended together in different octaves, and with a big, slow, deep pitch warble. Again, side note, like, if you know me, you know that I love that. You know that I love excessive side chaining. You know that I love hard panning effects. Find the things that you kind of obsess over and find yourself doing in all the music you make, and just make that your signature. All these little things that you keep doing over and over again when you make music that seem kind of inconsequential, they add up and they give you a sound. Anyways, so I'm working on kind of building up this beat as part of the first pattern. I have a scene set up with a low pass filter because duh. And then I have another scene set up where the reverb and delay are cranked on tracks 3, 4, and 6. That's kind of a fun build to mess around with. But yeah, back to that synth patch I tangented away from. So yeah, really cool. I don't know, I love these two elements together. It was just one of those serendipitous moments where I was playing around with my own source material, my own gear, and I found something that inspired me to go to one of my peers' samples, and I lucked out and it turned into a cool jam, and I want to build this pattern, make a second pattern, make a song out of it. It's been inspiring me the past couple of weeks. So yeah, let's just play around with the jam and hang out for a bit, and yeah, thanks for joining.